Welcome back to another episode of the Israel Connection. Ever since October 7th, Israel is at war. Things are unclear, very vague, and it is become increasingly more and more difficult to cover everything that's happening, but we're still going to do our best to provide that with this episode. Here we go. All right. Hello, everyone. Good morning.
Good morning.
Welcome all to another update about the situation right now. We call it the Israel connection, but now it really feels like the connection needs to be stronger than ever. And trying to keep up with Israel is at war. Trying to understand what's happening right now is becoming more and more difficult. Usually on those updates, what we do is we try to take 2 or 3 subjects and dive into them, giving a broader perspective and understanding the complexity of them. But unfortunately, for the passing weeks, I am not able to do so. I'm not able to dive into the complexity to really try and cover the news, to try and talk about the situation. Again, from a broader perspective, and I can't really detach my personal feeling from the situation. So instead of doing our usual update, talking usual, as if it wasn't the case for the 2 sessions we already had, is I'm going to give you the best I can in terms of what's happening right now. We're going to talk about, and I want this to be a space for you to share how you feel. This is more you than me now, because there's more unknown than known regarding the situation. There's so much I can tell, there's so much I know of, and I'm going to share with you as much information as I have. But I also know how hard it is to just watch everything from afar. I want to enable you to express how you feel, to react, to comment on the situation, to ask questions if you're unfamiliar with some of the terms or subjects that we're having. And I also want to talk about how can we be proactive about this and how can we still support the situation even though we're here or not there. So, as you all know, we are on week number 3 now, ever since, I can't believe I'm saying it, but since the war has started. We haven't had a war in Israel declared since Yom Kippur, 73. And that's because there's a distinction of definition between war and military operation. Those are not the same thing. When a state is in war, it means that all the resources, all the means, everything the country have is diverted into fighting. Economy, production, jobs, cars even, are all diverted into supporting the IDF. And in order to do so, you have to approve this by the parliament, by the Knesset. And Israel has not been in a state of war ever since the war of Yom Kippur, 73, 50 years ago exactly. The number of casualties as we know it right now is almost 1,500 Israelis were killed. 222 are taken hostage, as much as we know of. There's thousands of wounded still in hospitals, and we still have a lot of people missing. One of the most heartbreaking announcements I've been receiving is that people are going to continue to be missing for a long time. And that's something that is just too hard to handle. Some people are not going to know what happened to their loved ones, maybe even forever, just because of how hard and large this situation is. Hamas, a terror organization that is stationed in Gaza, has fired over 5,000 missiles. I think it's over 6,000 by now, missiles over Israel. We know that Hezbollah, a terror organization in Lebanon that try to support the means of Hamas, has been firing missiles at Israel as well. right? We've just shared the story of a community member here in Rockville that flew to Israel, made Aliyah to become a lone soldier, to serve in the IDF to protect Israel. He got back, he got called back to reserves and joined his unit in fight and died by one of those rockets in the northern border. Ever since the war has started, Israel's been reacting to the situation and not yet acting on it. We know that ever since it started, Israel has recruited all of its reserves. We have almost 150% capacity of reserves right now. People that have not even were recruited have joined in volunteering back to the fight to support the IDF and to defend Israel. And the army is stretched thin between the south in Gaza, the north with the border in Lebanon with Syria, and in Judea and Samaria in the center with the Palestinian Authority in the West Bank. All Israeli security forces are stretched thin between those three different frontiers because we know that one of them has already been ignited in Gaza, and the other two might follow. And that is an immediate risk for Israel. That's the formal information I know. That's all the information I have right now regarding the situation. We had a briefing with the Israeli embassy last week, and we spoke with members of the Israeli embassy and members of the IDF that serves here and provide that information. And we know that right now, the IDF has 4 targets. Disarm Hamas, keep the area calm as much as it can and not ignite any more frontiers, return the hostages, and eventually clear Gaza of Hamas. Each one of those targets, each one of those missions that IDF has right now is a very hard one to reach. We know that the IDF has not yet started its ground infiltration into Gaza. We don't know why that is happening.
כן, אני מקשיבה לזום של דין.
I have members of my family here joining the Zoom as well. And I'm happy to see them again. I'm happy that they're all here. And that's all that we know right now. The IDF is stretched thin. Everybody in Israel are in shelter. And no one's safe. But I wanted to, right, as Paula said, to try and show you what life looks like right now in Beersheba, what life looks like in Israel from that point of view. And ever since Israel has been in state of war, a lot of people are being unemployed, not being paid. The economy is taking a hard strike here because of this. A lot of people are in reserves. That's a huge amount of people that are not being working in their jobs and participating in this effort right now from the IDF. There's missile alarms everywhere still. Just heard from my mom this morning that she was trying to take a shower and a missile alarm interrupted her and she has to go in her rope to shelter. Not all have shelter in their house. Some of it are community shelter and you have to walk outside of your house and run towards the shelter. Yes, markets are still open, stores are still open, but a lot of people are preparing for whatever to come, for the time that they would not have enough time to go to the supermarket to go and get groceries, so people are stacking up. They're receiving that announcement a few weeks ago, 2 weeks ago, to stack up and get ready for the time that the supermarkets would not be open. And the longer this operation is going to continue, this war is going to continue, the harder it's going to get from the personal perspective, obviously, from security perspective, but also from the economical perspective. It's going to get harder because some people don't get the income they used to have. Prices are going to get higher because of the demands right now for all of that supply. And as long as it is Israel in war, it's going to divert a lot of its resources to support the IDF and support the means to defend Israel right now, which is goal number one. It's security. And it is hard. And I don't know if I've shared this with you in the passing Zooms. When we're talking about the IDF, when we're talking about ground infiltration, we're talking about military operations, I don't see soldiers. Those are my friends right now. All the people I grew up with are the one in reserves right now on the border of Gaza, on the border with Lebanon. One of them is even one of our emissaries here in Rockville, Ido. He got back to join his unit. I've been sharing with you that I'm heartbroken about that split that I have internally about going back or staying here. My entire unit, everybody that I know and training with for years now, are all recruited and operating to support the IDF. And when we're saying military operation, when we're saying infiltration, ground troops, I see faces. I see people I know. I see people that I grew up with. My cousin is one of them as well. And as much as I want Hamas to be gone, I also know that there is a price to pay for ground action. There always is. And it's heartbreaking because you, on the one hand, want to do what's right. You know right now that the ground operation is inevitable. It just is. There's no way of Israel letting Hamas go with it without paying the price. The IDF has been bombing Gaza for 2 weeks now, disarming Hamas targets. We know that this is happening. But that's not gonna end it. Hamas is always, as long as there is ground for Hamas, is going to continue to exist. I had the program yesterday with teens in Adat Reim, the synagogue in Springfield. And we took that opportunity. We had an hour and a half to talk about the situation and to provide them, as the one being the most exposed right now, to the unfiltered information coming from social media, to give them context and support to whatever they're seeing right now. We started by talking about the history of Israel and why it is important for the Jewish people. Then we moved on to talk about the complexity of the situation, the rise of Hamas, and the fact that Hamas is bad for Palestinians right now in Gaza, that Hamas is diverting all resources and all means possible to kill Jews and kill Israelis. That's the only thing that matters, not humanitarian aid support, not providing electricity and resources for hospitals, not providing sewage and pipage, but to kill Israelis and to establish the Islamic State, the same mission as ISIS had. And then we moved on to talk about how are we dealing with this situation. And I could not mention that while talking about this, a friend of mine, Noah Argamani, is one of the hostages as well. And that it is increasingly harder to try and provide a broader perspective, to show all the different sides of this situation. Talk about it as a look from above, from an eagle's point of view, because casualties, soldiers, military, all of those are now people my age and friends and family I grew up with. And it's frustrating for me to see that as much as the Jewish community is aware of it, and I can say talking to those teens was a nice breeze of hope. Right? It's a really wonderful group of teens that are compassionate and caring and willing to learn more and to be part of this Jewish world. It was a breeze of hope for me. It really was. But then you go on international media, when you go on social media, and you see the hatred and the misunderstanding and the misinformation everybody's having on the situation. And it's hard. It's hard to stay positive. It's hard to stay optimistic. And it's even harder to talk about the situation when, again, as you said, when you're saying IDF, I see faces, I see names, I don't see soldiers. And I'm frustrated by this. I'm frustrated that this is what we're having to deal with. And I would love to hear your perspective as well. And what do you know about the situation, or how you feel? So please use this stage to talk about how you feel. And then I want to give room also to talk about how can we support the situation. So please do.
Hi, Dean. Thanks for all of these sessions that you've done. I've got a question, and the question is right now, not that it matters, but who is Hamas? Are these people who have been recruited from the Palestinians living in Gaza?
Mhm.
Have they infiltrated from elsewhere under Iranian instructions? Are they, are they are they citizens of Gaza who've just been recruited and perverted to adopt this terrible cause?
Mhm. Um, Again, Gabe, thank you for the questions. I always appreciate them. All right. Before we explain what is Hamas, we need to understand what is Gaza, right? When we talk about this pro-Israel, pro-Palestine, Palestinians, Palestinian, free Palestine, what does that actually mean? After 67, right, Israel has occupied two very important territories. It occupied the West Bank from Jordan, from the Jordanian country, and it occupied Gaza along with the Sinai Desert from Egypt. That was part of the 6 Days War. That was one of Israel's efforts to defend all the settlements that were threatened by those areas. It was to occupy them. Gaza Strip remained a part of Israel, while the Sinai Desert was returned to Egypt as part of the peace agreement between the two of them. Israel has a peace agreement now with Egypt, and Gaza was part of Israel, along with everybody that was in it. The West Bank has become a completely different situation. It was occupied from Jordan. Israel has made an agreement with Jordan. They've reached a peace agreement and established the Palestinian Authority in the West Bank to control life and to become this authoritarian entity in the West Bank. All right. If you hear any references to Palestine or whatever that is, the closest thing to it is the West Bank. That's the largest concentration of people who identify as Palestinians and are now living under this autonomous entity that is the Palestinian Authority. Okay? We need to keep in mind that before Israel was established as a Jewish state in 1948, there were a lot of different ethnicities there, a lot of different people. There were the Jewish people, all the goes way back from the Kingdom of Judea. There were Arabs who identified as Palestinians because of the name of the land before that, Philistine. There were Bedouins who still live there as ethnicities and tribes of nomad that still takes place. They are Muslims, they are Arabs, but they don't identify as Palestinians. The Rus, or a different kind of like branch of Islam that still lives in the northern part of Israel, considered Arabs in culture, not Muslim in religion, but also part of it. A lot of different ethnicities, and Palestinians became a self-identification tool for people who wants to be identified with the West Bank. Gaza, on the other hand, was part of Israel until the disengagement plan in early 2000. Within the disengagement plan, Israel, after facing terror that's been happening in Gaza, has decided to withdraw all military troops and all Israeli settlements that were in Gaza and create it as an autonomous entity as well. Hamas is a terror organization established originally by Palestinians. They call themselves the resistance movement, but their goal is similar to ISIS. Establish the Islamic State, and by the Islamic State, we're meaning all the way from Saudi Arabia to the Mediterranean. One nation of Islam, similar to ISIS. Hamas was organized by Palestinians, but not all Palestinians support Hamas. Hamas is supported by Iran, and that is because Iran is a factor of chaos. Whenever we see fragility in Islamic states, we know that Iran is trying to be involved in this. In Yemen, they've supported the rebels, the Houthis, that are now firing at Israel. Lebanon, they support the Hezbollah, who fight the Lebanese government. Syria as well, they're advocates for civil war. Iran has one goal only, and it is to create instability and to support terror. Because Iran's agenda to create an Islamic state, the Islamic nation, is doing so by creating instability in the Middle East and then infiltrating with terror and terror organization. That's why they're supporting Hamas. That's why they're supporting Hezbollah in Lebanon. After the disengagement plan in the early 2000s, I don't know if I'm correct about it, maybe 2006, there were elections held in Gaza. As becoming an autonomous entity, they had an election held, and Hamas won those elections to become the government of Gaza. Instead of becoming the government of Gaza and govern Gaza, they decided to take all the means and all the resources Gaza had, all the humanitarian aid support it's been receiving, pipage, sewage, infrastructure, all resources directed to one goal, and that's terror. To kill Jews, to destroy Israel. And they've been doing so and making the life of the Gaza residents who don't support Hamas miserable. And whatever they're doing right now in Israel, they did to Palestinians in Gaza first, eliminating everybody who resists them and controlling them with fear and with disinformation. Hamas profit from dead Palestinians because he can take pictures of them, he can say, look how bad the IDF is, and he can use that to leverage international pressure on Israel. That's their tactic. They don't want to have a better situation for the Palestinians living Gaza. They don't want to free the Palestinians from Gaza, and they don't want to support the Palestinian Authority in the West Bank. They want to destroy Israel. That's the origin of Hamas. That's what Hamas is doing right now. And that's why we have to destroy Hamas. That's not a rational entity that you can discuss with. We've seen from the horrors that they've been doing that these are not rational people. They don't think rationality. They have no problem killing infants, kidnap elderlies, kidnap babies, and they don't have problem destroying every soul in their past, no matter their faith, gender, age, or any type of attribution.
One of the things that I have not understood, because this narrative has been going on for so long, and because it is played out so often, is why Israel has not been able to engage in counter social media that gets their narrative out in a much more powerful way than what we see, because the Hamas and all the terrorist organizations that support, they get the media going immediately. They get the media on their side. They get the world thinking, oh, the poor Palestinians. And I agree with everything you said. Hamas does not care about Palestinians. It doesn't care about the Gaza Strip. It's done nothing since it took power to use the money that the billions and billions of dollars and resources poured into it, including what Israelis have done to try and help those in Gaza, like with water projects and whatnot. They don't care. They're solely there to destroy it, but they also seem to know how to make it look, as you say, of the poor Palestinians. And I have not understood why Israel since this has been happening for over a decade now, hasn't been able how to figure out how to either hack the accounts, stop the accounts, or whatever.
Yes, Susan, go ahead. Here's your hand.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I know this is probably a really stupid question, but
There's no such thing.
well, in this in the time of well, let's say let's call it peace, okay, in all these last many years since 73, I've been under the impression that that Israelis have tried to create communities in the Gaza Strip area. They've been teaching and they've been part of hospital medical teams. Is that true or no?
You have to repeat that. What do you mean?
I mean, like, my feeling is, my understanding, I don't know, from various different reports over the years, that there have been Israeli communities that have been set up to try and better understand each other, and also that I thought that that teachers have been helping to educate in the Gaza Strip, and that doctors have been Israeli doctors have been in hospitals and treating all those who are in the Gaza area needing having these needs. Is that a connection, a misnomer, misguidance, or something? Has any of that happened over these many decades, or I'm totally off? I'm totally misinformed.
So yes and no, and I'll try to explain why. The area around Gaza, which is in Israeli territory, is called the Gaza envelope. All the cities and settlements that are around that area are just cities and settlements that are there. They're people that used to live there and they continue to live there. They're not destined specifically geographically to support Gaza. A lot of people who chose to live in the Gaza envelope chose to live there because they believe in shared life. They've been trying to enact on different civil initiatives of shared life, supporting one another, providing help, and also Israel allowing Gaza residents to exit Gaza, go into Israel for work. There's some people who were gained that work permit, and a lot of them were employed by people in the Gaza envelope. So yes, a lot of people in the Gaza envelope believed in shared life. Those are the ones that took the hardest strike. All the different massacres happened on those settlements that had the biggest peace advocates you can ever see. They're the first one to be killed by Hamas. And there have been a lot of different initiatives for shared life that came out of those areas. Not specifically designated by the state. A lot of them were individual initiatives or civil society initiatives. But yes, a lot of them believed in shared life and killed because they were just the first one in line. To answer Deborah's question, we can go on forever about why is Israel doing such a shit job at explaining the situation from the Israeli perspective. We can go all the way back to the announcements of the UN that Zionism is racism, that Israel didn't accept. And we can go to the political conflict, and it's the withdraw a lot of the money that was destined for the Foreign Office. There's too many different factors to count on what exactly have caused Israel to have such a bad ability to explain what it believes in. Some of it also has to do with us Israelis believing that the world would not hear us, no matter what we say, and that we lost faith that the liberal world, the Western world, will support Israel and will support the Jewish people. There's a lot of different factors. Some of it are internal, some of it are external, but it is what it is. And I know that Israel has been trying to understand how to do a better job, but I'm frustrated just as you about the situation, and whether Israel will or will not do the effort of sharing the story from that perspective. we as individuals we have to do it ourselves. We have to do it for the Jewish people, and we have to do it for Israel, because we are all Israel has right now, all that it's got.
My sister stayed with Ophir in May. His community, Shahanegev, is a sister city to San Diego, not just her synagogue, but to the city of San Diego. And he's made a number of trips there. And one of the things he had told them at that time that he was so proud of was there was a factory he had been working on that I think was a water project, but I'm not quite sure about that, that was supposed to open the week after the attacks. So that first week in October, it was going to provide jobs for thousands of Gazans, somewhere between 5,000 and 10,000 jobs for Gazans. It was between their community and the border. Hamas had tried to sabotage it as it was being built, but they had kept going, and they were finally at that point. And he was telling them back in May how excited he was this was going to finally happen. So at least as of that first day, not only was he killed, but at least 44 other people that my sister knows of. It was devastating to that community. The YouTube video that I think Josh referenced is called Hamas Murders Local Hero, and it's worth watching.
I'm sorry, and thank you for sharing. Yes, Susan, go ahead.
Yeah, I have a question about Netanyahu. I think it should be my personal feeling. I think that all the infrastructure that keeps Israel fighting and working hard at defending themselves would happen without Netanyahu. And I think he has a really bad reputation. And I mean, maybe that's part of the misinformation. But I think there should be pressure to get rid of him and replace him with somebody who's everyone who supports Israel and its democracy could feel confident about if they put the screws to him, as my understanding is he deserves, and move him aside and let somebody else be named leader, because I don't think that I don't have the feeling that whether he's really leader, it means he's really leader. So I think he's really crook. So I mean, obviously I'm tainted, and I accept being corrected. Thanks.
Thank you for that. I am not going to respond with my personal opinion on it. I apologize. But I am going to say this. The only thing that differentiates Israel from its surroundings in the Middle East is that we're a democracy. And Netanyahu, whether we like it or not, was elected democratically and legitimately by the public. He's being elected for 20 years now to be the Prime Minister of Israel, and he was the only one able to create coalitions, whether we like it or not, as the Prime Minister of Israel. And he still is the Prime Minister right now, whether we like it or not. Does that change the fact that we support Israel, or we advocate for the Israeli people, or we support the initiatives that are right now happening from Israel? No, we can still do it whether we like Netanyahu as Prime Minister or not, and we can still criticize him as Prime Minister without saying that we don't support Israel. We can do both. And I can add that a year ago, Netanyahu was not the Prime Minister. It was Bennett. And it was the first time ever in the Israeli coalition. It had Arab parties as part of the coalition, leaders from the Arabic Society of Israel being part of the government. That didn't change for a lot of international media the way they prescribe Israel. And does not necessarily will change if we replace Netanyahu, because anti-Zionism and anti-Semitism grows over our personal taste regarding that. I'm not sure if replacing Netanyahu will make everything better in terms of international view of Israel, because there's still anti-Zionism, there's still anti-Semitism going on, and there will still be false information whether we like it or not, with or without Netanyahu. Go ahead, Jeff.
Thank you, Dean. It's been a really terrific discussion, and I want to thank all of you for engaging in this format with Dean. The last couple of weeks have been hard on all of us, but they've been unbearable for Dean and for so many Israelis in our community and over in Israel. And I just want to say, in listening to the last 45 minutes, Dean, you are just unbelievable. First of all, I believe everything you say, but you're unbelievable in the way that you are able to illuminate the complexities, to keep an even tone and an even hand, knowing what you and your family and your friends are going through. And, I think about your role here as a Shaliach. And I was on a Zoom call with Shluchim supervisors and some folks from the agency and Guy Sella, who is sort of the head Shaliach of the Jewish agency, who is taking a break from being a Shaliach to deploy. And he talked about the struggle that you're facing, along with other Shluchim, about whether you should be in the diaspora or whether you should be on the ground in Israel. And his view, which I agree with, is that while you could be one of many soldiers in Israel and do great service to the state and to the Jewish people in that role, as you said, we have 150% reservists. And every soldier is important, but there are many soldiers. There are many fewer shlichim. And the role that you play here is, in my opinion and in Guy's opinion, even more important than what you could do on the ground, because the way that our communities in the diaspora and in Israel come together in times of crisis is going to be critical to the future of our people. And so I didn't want to let today go by without expressing my personal appreciation on behalf of the community, our appreciation for the hard choice that you are making to be here with us, and to the extraordinary contribution you are making to our ability to cope with this horrific war. So I just wanted to say thank you. And we're going to need you for the next weeks and months ahead, which are only going to get tougher.
Thank you. Gabe, Michael, go ahead.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more with what Jeff just said. I mean, I've marveled at your ability to, especially the last 3 weeks, to just conduct these sessions. And I think about what would it be like if I was in Israel trying to explain the United States. I mean, never mind fighting, but just trying to explain, say, Congress and what's happening in Congress. I'd never be able to be as articulate and objective as you have been during this time.
Yes,
Yeah.
I just wanted to say that in military, there are many jobs. Some are on the front and some are what you're doing. And I would say that you are definitely serving in your military. So I agree with Jeff that what you're doing is more than essential. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you all for participating. I can say that as hard as this have been, the support I've been receiving both from home and from the community here has been really helping me stay sane. And the more opportunities I get to speak about the situation, to talk about what's happening, the more I feel valuable and proactive about the situation. So I want to thank you for coming to this program and engaging with the conversation. And I hope that this provide you with help and support and information about what's happening, and also with means to deal with it. If you want to help, go to our website at the JCC. We have a Padlet there with bazillion initiatives we're curating right now to support Israel whatever ways possible. And we want to encourage everybody that's engaging with us to do whatever they can to help Israel. Supporting organization, fighting disinformation, spreading awareness, gathering people and talk about this. You matter, and what you do helps Israel. Thank you all. Have a wonderful rest of your week. Israel needs us right now.